And welcome to another exciting episode of the World Gaming Trade Show. I am your host from the In-Game Boss program and the In-Game Boss podcast, Jeremy Evans. And with me, number two, the guy all the way over in Indiana, this is...
Branden from the Game Addicts podcast. I'm so glad to be here with you here today for episode number 2. We got some cool games to talk about here today. If you didn't know, here's what we do. We take some old games and some old franchises that have kind of not been active for a while. Maybe they're long dead. And we try to discuss back and forth who, what developer, what publisher should be putting out maybe these games, giving their own little spin on it. And today we got 2 new games to bring to you guys as well. And as we kind of feel our way through this, because like we've discussed, is it 2? Do we have time for 2? How much is what? Like maybe we'll throw in a third one if it's a small one. You know, we're just going to fill this out as we go.
Yeah, and if you haven't catch our very first episode, we have discussed a Sega game called Comix Zone, followed by a Sony interactive game, Legend of Dragoon. So definitely check that out and hear our picks. Very interesting conversation that we had on that. Now, the way this show works is our first display will be in the first half of the show, followed by the second display in the second half of the show. So I present mine, and then Mr. Branden here will present his in the second half. So are we ready? So... let's go ahead and start out with our very first pick. Now, this game is another game that definitely been gone for a very, very long time. Actually, fun fact, when I discussed this with Branden, he showed me a picture of this game costing about $500, if I'm correct.
And that was marked down for label damage.
Yeah, so... this game here is actually was presented by, actually written and designed by Hideo Kojima. So this was an interesting game, and this is probably one of his earlier times when he was doing Metal Gear. And this game is a bit of a sci-fi, and this is what happened if you put Blade Runner and Terminator together in some sort of way. But this game is called Snatcher. Now, this game has been gone since 1996. That was the last entry that it had it in, if I'm correct here. But you're looking at on the PC in 1988, followed by PC Engine in 92, Sega CD got it in 94, and then Saturn and PS got it in 96. And for people that don't know, this is more of like a visual novel. I would say it's a click adventure, but that's only with the like kind of shooter gallery, which on the Sega CD one, you were actually presented with a gun you can use to shoot at the enemies on certain parts of the game. But also too, you can play with like a controller, or if you have it on PC, you can just move with the arrows and stuff like that. But you're basically an investigator by the name of Gillian Seed that actually has amnesia, and he basically plays an agent that hunts Snatchers, and those are humanoid robots that kill humans and take over, basically replace them. So they're kind of among society and no one would notice. What's interesting too about this game is when I first played it was total all dialogue. Never played a game like that back in the day. It was just all dialogue. Like they all talk and everything like that. And also too that your partner for Gillian is actually a MK2, and that's like a Metal Gear little robot that accompanies you and kind of helps you out with information and whatnot. He was basically your little mini Google, if I can put it in better terms for that. But I played it on the emulator on Sega CD on my computer. But Branden, did you actually play the actual copy of it, or okay?
No,
go into
no.
that a little bit.
No. I first downloaded it on played it on the emulator. I mean, even back then, I never had a Sega CD growing up at all. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't have an actual way to play the game. I don't even have one now as part of my collection, simply because in my area, Sega stuff is just not that active and collectible. Like, you know, I have a very small and meager Dreamcast. I haven't even decided to dive into Saturn because you just can't find anything around here.
That's true. That's very true.
And, you know, I have to go up to like closer to Chicago to start finding some cool stuff as far as, you know, and then that's where the copy of Snatcher was for the Sega CD, was up there near Chicago, near a store near my buddy Nate. He's got like a retro game store up there. And I followed him on Facebook, and I remember seeing that copy. In fact, it was marked down $100. This normally goes for $600 complete in box, and it was marked down just because the manual was bent. And then I'm just like, man, I don't know if there's any game that I could ever pay
right
$500, $600 for. I mean, you know, I remember playing this way back on the emulator, and you know, as you said, it was a bit different. It was just a full blown like it wasn't even like the old like adventure games that I played back on like the early PC stuff where you actually click your character over. It was more like you just go and move to areas. You moved for the menu up and down and you talk to people and you like you pick dialogue. But what was really neat is that for the time, like this was like there was a lot of actual voice dialogue done for this game.
Yeah, what also stand out to me was like I don't play a lot of visual novels. Games like that, but I also noticed that like you have to ask the right questions because you couldn't move on to the next section until you literally talk to everybody and ask them questions and search around like the rooms that you're in, open drawers, go in the computer. Like you really have to you have to really put your mind into that game and dig deep to really feel the lore of the game because there's a lot of information and it could be overwhelming sometimes. And I remember when I first did my first investigation, it was like a broken down building where you had to go find about like someone that got killed there, and they don't hold back on the visuals of like blood.
No.
Now, yeah, but the funny part is in Japan they don't hold back whatever. I mean, you're seeing like nudity, you're seeing more blood here. In America, they had to cut that back a little bit, especially like when heads got cut off, you wouldn't really see the blood splatter. You would just see the head cut off and everything like that. And basically, it almost becomes the old school like dungeon crawler where you're going room to room to room, and then you have to pick left or right to kind of look around. You can easily get lost. But but when it comes to the shooter gallery, it goes into like kind of like a tic-tac-toe board, and basically you just like kind of mark where you need to go and just shoot. And another thing cool about this game is, you get little Easter eggs, so you get like certain characters from like the Kojima games that kind of like go among the crowd. I remember one scene you go to this bar and you have to go question people, and you see like hidden characters that they don't fit in that gaming world, but they're just there just to be funny and everything like that. Do you remember how far you got in that game off the top of your head?
Not much further past that first investigation, like you said, where you're in that dilapidated building. Now, you mentioned that Mark II, that Metal Gear character. What's really neat is that they use that similar design for that when they went into Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns to the Patriots, for when Otacon introduces the Mark II, and it's almost like verbatim. That's what that thing looks like almost.
Right.
And I think I like how Kojima kind of does that, how he comes and he brings in stuff from the past, like he did, you get police not posters and all that kind of stuff around. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah, what's also interesting too is that this game was such under the radar that it just never got a continuation, because this is a game to me that could have got like, a new antagonist, protagonist, just the name itself. Like we could have been more into this world, but since now it's 2020, it's been over 24 years, I want to say. So it's been a long time for this game. So why do I want this game to come back? Because the lore is awesome in it, and it needs to come back and show, and I really want it to come back in a different way. Now, will Kojima... let me rewind back a little bit. I want to say that if Kojima had the chance to buy the rights and get that, I think he would have touched it again for his production. After we
I think that'd be really neat.
Yeah, after Death Stranding, I could see him doing like have a small team do that game or something like that. I don't know if he would do a full-blown game, but, with the hands of Konami not really letting go to their properties and stuff, this game is really just sitting there dying, or it's been dead for so long.
Yep.
So who can we get to develop this game? So now, when I was looking at my list of developers, there were some simple ones. I was like, all right, well, Telltales can do it. They're pretty cool. They're good at storytelling. But I was like, nah. Like, they're good at, like, dialogue and stuff like that. But the way their engine is, I don't want them to do this game. But I do respect Telltale Games. I love Wolf Among Us. That's really good storytelling based on the comics. So they're really good at adapting games into their thing. And then I was also looking at Don't Nod. Now, the people that did Life is Strange. Another group, published by Square Enix did it. But I picked this one group because I need this game to be more modernized. I want it to be where, instead of a visual novel, I want it to be where the character can walk around. You can physically see him walk around, talk to people, choice-based, quick-time events. So I'm going to pick this developer that actually finally is going independent for themselves after being with Sony for so long, and that is Quantic Dreams. So, and for people that don't know, they're known for Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Detroit, and of course the one on PS2 that probably people know a lot about, Indigo Prophecy. So they're really good at really doing like these moments, interactions, great dialogue, choice based, where you have multiple endings based on your picks. And how cool would it be as an agent that you yourself have to investigate and also interrogate, like you would say L.A. Noire? Are these people, is this person real or is this an android? And the choices you make can have that repercussion coming after it. If you didn't know if he was a robot or not, you let him go and you end up being a robot, he kills more people. I want that responsibility. I want that mistake. But if I can figure him out, that's even better. And then that can just go right down the rabbit hole of figuring out who's the puppet king around or the puppet master of all of this and everything, and bring us in more of this lore of this world. And instead of like maybe an MK, maybe you can have another android that's a robot that can help you with information, or maybe you can have like a floating little robot like you see like Booster Gold, little ski or something. I don't know, but I would love that way to do it because that would be more monorized and it wouldn't be more of a click point adventure. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so it's kind of funny that we both started in the exact same spot.
Okay.
Telltale.
Okay,
That's the first place I looked because I really enjoyed The Walking Dead. I loved Wolf Among Us. I also loved the Game of Thrones. I love the Batman. Everything I played from Telltale is actually pretty good, even despite their engine working against them.
Yes.
It's been fun and entertaining. And at the very least. But I did kind of agree with you, and I loved how you picked Quantum Dream. Because like. I loved everything that they put out too. I remember playing Indigo Prophecy, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two. I actually really, really got emotional during Beyond Two Souls. I love the game. I know there's some people didn't like that one that much, but I thought it was great. And then I actually have not finished Detroit. I got sidetracked on it, and I need to go back to it. But I loved what I played. I got so far. I think the last thing I played was the dude. He was in like the android graveyard, putting himself back together.
Okay.
All right, so I thought of that first because that kind of falls into the same style, a Telltale, kind of doing the similar thing that to what Snatcher originally was. But I've been replaying a game lately that came out about a year and a half ago, not quite. I've been replaying Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I got an Xbox One X for Christmas. And I'm like, I heard this game looks fantastic in 4K and HDR. I got to see it. So I started playing it, and I'm off to the races, right? I'm like, okay, here I go. I guess this is my second playthrough. But it made me think of what you just said. You mentioned the game a minute ago, L.A. Noire. Okay, I replayed that when it came out on the Switch. And there's some glimpses of brilliance in L.A. Noire, where it gives you that free and open world feel. You don't get in too many gunfights. It's there. But it's in segments. You can't just, as a cop, pull your gun out and start just, GTA and all up on the streets of LA. But then you have those crime scenes where you get to go and you get to investigate, put your case together, have that sit down one-on-one interview where you have to, like, was it Doubt, Truth, and Lie, or there was, in the re-release they did like good cop, bad cop type thing where you're being more forceful, But with Red Dead 2, they've gone in such detail of where you go and you search through houses. You hold the button to search, search the dresser, search the drawer, search this chest. You're going through all kinds of stuff. So if you're able to meld in the detailed searching and everything with that L.A. Noire, searching across the crime scene and the investigation and then the interviews, and while also giving you kind of an open world feel, like how cool would it be to be able to actually drive around in that futuristic version of like is that Tokyo or
basically it's like a sci-fi Tokyo.
Yeah, like how cool would it be to be able to just kind of like drive around a little bit, like go from case to case. You can the little Mark II, you can actually drive just like an LA Noire, how you can hold the button to let your partner drive and you just kind of like it'll just kind of skip to you there. That's what I was thinking of. I'm like, this, you could actually have more of that, and just like in in Snatcher, where the gunplay is certain segments where you have the grid. You can actually have the gameplay or the gunplay in segments like L.A. Noire. So that's so I picked Rockstar, because I think they would just. It's not their original story, so that might be something that they wouldn't want to do. But I think if they were able to like have their own creative freedom with it and do that, meld in, taking stuff that they've done before, because they're not too in a big hurry to release games or release sequels. So we don't know if we'll ever get a sequel to L.A. Noire. But if there was a spiritual successor to L.A. Noire in the remake of Snatcher, I think that'd be badass.
So Rockstar has never really touched sci-fi ever, if I'm correct, based on the things.
No.
Yeah. So my question for you for that is, what could they do to make themselves stand out from being like an open world of like, you know, Red Dead and LA Noire and Grand Theft Auto? Like, what would you think that would make Snatcher stand out a little bit more? Like, are we talking about like maybe flying cars more, or like what is your vision you're thinking of?
Well, flying cars would be pretty cool, but you'd almost be going into like Fifth Element type area with the look and everything.
Okay.
I don't remember if there's flying cars in the original. I think it would be really neat if they would be able to reach out to Kojima to have him come on as like just an advisor or an executive producer. So like, they're in control of it and they just kind of pick his brain. Like, should we do this? Should we do that? And then, I mean, because you know how much of a Kojima, he always says that he wants to let other people do stuff with his own stuff, but he always ends up like overseeing everything. And he's like, no, he's such a control dude. Like, no, we got to do this way and this that way. I think it'd be really neat if they got him involved. And, I would worry a little bit about the world being too designed after, like, similar to, like, Cyberpunk.
Okay.
I would be a little worried about that if you're going to do an open world, but I do think Cyberpunk is a little bit more, like, dilapidated as far as it's, like, it's futuristic, but stuff is run down. And it kind of seems like here, especially, like, it's a lot more Blade Runner-y. It's
yes,
a lot
it
more,
is.
like with Tokyo, you can really do like the big neon lights and like the big cityscapes. Like especially like you imagine walking down like the main street. That's almost kind of like their version of like Times Square, where they just have all the ads. Because that's something that I really liked from Blade Runner, how they have these big, interactive ads, like the big billboards.
Yeah,
and I just think that'd be so cool.
I think too, either for both games, whoever develop it, I would love to see like really go sci-fi when you're doing investigation. I want to see like, floating computers, like holograms. I want to see them like almost like Batman, like Arkham, like he does investigations. I really want to see like, an image of like a display of where that enemy killed this person in action, like a visual hologram style. Like what we imagined that what it might have looked like to help kind of get a better idea of it.
Kind of like in Detroit. In Detroit, when you when you rewind a little bit, like the more evidence you gather in the room, like okay, so he was standing here, and then you can kind of rewind the footage and he can kind of put it together in his own head. Yeah, that's kind of neat. I like that.
Yeah. Now, would your Rockstar have multiple endings, or would it be just more of a straight story with one conclusion? What do you think for yours?
Why wouldn't you have multiple endings to give you more replayability? I think that'd be badass.
Okay. Because I haven't played Red Dead yet, but I know that's definitely just mostly Rockstar games are mostly just one-ended, right? If I'm correct.
There was it all ended the same, but you could have a variation at the end where you can either help John get out or go get the money.
Okay.
And so there is a slight variation, so it's almost like you have an honorable ending and a dishonorable ending. So it's like, but it still ends with the same way because Arthur's got to die.
Right?
He's got to die, and he has his last stand against Micah. But I think there's also a way that you could actually injure Micah's eye in that go get the money ending. So when you meet up with him later on as John, he's got he's missing an eye.
Okay.
So little stuff, but overall it's the same general ending.
And one most important thing that I really want from both sides, I don't care who does it or not, but I really would like a two-part story. So one story investigating who these Snatchers are and who's the big boss behind it with choices that lead you there. But also, too, we have to remember that Gillian has amnesia. So it needs to be another side story of him trying to remember who he is. And that's something we definitely need to know. I don't know if I want to maybe get intertwined with it all, but it would be really cool if you had two stories that all maybe come together or something like that. I don't know how, but I really like the idea of you're trying to find out who you are at the same time, trying to figure out where are these Snatchers, who's making them, and whatnot. And so,
that'd be like that would be really cool. And I think this is just again, like a prime candidate for the kind of idea that we're kind of like putting together as far as like this game has been gone from everything for so long that not too many people even know it exists. I was talking about it at work because I was kind of like, hey, did you ever hear about this game? And they're looking at me like, no. I'm like, it's a Kojima game. He goes, the Metal Gear guy? Yeah. I'm like, he did other games besides Metal Gear, surprisingly enough, but he did, and this is one of the ones he did one or two before he touched Metal Gear Solid. And, you could almost see, with this game being almost fully voice acted, and then you get to Metal Gear Solid and it's completely voice acted. And it sounds some of the most professional voice acting you've heard in a video game to date as of 1998. You can see some of that starting here, even though maybe it's not, 100% up to that level of quality of voice acting, but it starts here.
Yeah, and definitely you can even bring it out now and it can actually just feel like a brand new game. It's like this game could never exist. It could be like a reboot, but basically a brand new game. It could be almost by another name, but it's still Snatcher. Yeah, it's just so crazy. So yeah, for people that are listening to it, definitely go check out the game for yourself, and then definitely leave a comment and opinion of, do you think our developers would fit that part, or what developers that you think would do the job. And so with that, we're going to take a break, enjoy our commercial, and then we come back, we get back to the second half where we go into another syndicate area of this game that I love to present you right after this. Hey, this is the network creator Jeremy Evans, and I want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the show as part of the In-Game Boss program. And if you enjoy this, then you should definitely check out all our other great content we have on this network. Remember, you can always follow, subscribe, leave a comment, or concerns, because we would love to hear your thoughts. And lastly, enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey guys, this is Brando, and I'm the host of the Game Addicts podcast, a show where I cover the latest news in gaming and take a look back on some of gaming's best consoles, series, and games. With over 3 years of episodes in the back catalog, there's plenty of great episodes to sink your teeth into. So check out GameAddictsPodcast.com or download us on your favorite podcast platform. Into live streams, head over to twitch.tv/GameAddictsPlay for Let's Plays and to chat along with the podcast during the live recording. Still want more? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for your one-stop shop for everything we do. So what are you waiting for? It's time to level up and check out the Game Addicts Podcast.
And welcome back to the second half of the World Gaming Trade Show. Once again, I'm Jeremy from the In-Game Boss program, and this is
Brando from the Game Addicts Podcast. Sorry.
No,
I was looking down at my notes. I'm getting ready for my entry. So this part's going to be my entry. And, of course, we just talked about Snatcher, great game. And what was really kind of interesting is that, when my buddy here, he hit me up, he was like, hey, man, what's your pick for this, for this one? That way I can do a little bit of research. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot to get that to you. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to do another RPG, but I got other RPGs I want to do. And I'm thinking, and I'm looking at my older games, because I did a, PlayStation 1 game. And I come across this game that I played on the Sega Genesis. It's in my collection, called Shadowrun.
Shadowrun? Yeah.
Shadowrun's a really neat pick. Now, kind of weirdly, it's in like another like dystopian future-esque type thing, cyberpunk, urban fantasy, but it's a tabletop game. And I'm like, holy crap, it's a tabletop game, man, we got cyberpunk coming out, like the same deal. But it's kind of not, but they both exist. And also Shadowrun is still going today with its 6th edition releasing last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. So like, these guys sit down, they make their characters, they roll some dice, they're in this, weird future. It's weird because Shadowrun is like, it's like this weird cyberpunk future, but they got like orcs and they got magic, and it's a weird mixture of these, of what you would think of a classic D&D and this like futuristic type setting. They kind of collide.
Right.
Now, interestingly enough, and this won't shock anybody if you guys know anything about the 16-bit era, this game was released on the Sega Genesis, but it was also released on the Super Nintendo. But guess what? They are not the same game. It was very common back then for them to take a property, like Shadowrun here, but also like Aladdin. Aladdin was on the Super Nintendo and on the Sega Genesis were developed by 2 separate teams. It wasn't just one game that was ported over to the other and same game across the board. They were completely different games. Same thing with RoboCop versus the Terminator for one. I don't know why I have that one. I had that one on the Genesis and I played it on the Super Nintendo and went, this is not even the same thing. I mean, it's cool, but it's not even the same game. Same thing here. So you have 2 different versions. I played the Genesis version. I never did play the Super Nintendo version. There are different games. I think the Super Nintendo one's an isometric view, where the Genesis version is more, top-down view. It's maybe a little bit more violent. It wouldn't surprise me at all because Genesis games were typically more violent. But this series, there was that game. There was a few other ones throughout the years. There was a visual novel developed for the Sega CD. I think it was only in Japan, perhaps. I don't know if it ever came out here.
No, it was only Japan. It was a visual novel. You're right.
Yeah. Then there was one that was canceled, and then 360 had a game called that, and it was using that label, but literally it was just an online shooter with no story. In fact, there was a demo for a story, but they scrapped it, and it that was it. Like, that has been, nothing else has been done with it. And so like, when I'm thinking of something that can be done for an older game, and I'm not even looking at that 360 game. I'm not even looking at that. That's an online game where people run around just whacking on each other. But I'm thinking about that game for the Sega Genesis, and people run around like them splicing into computers where it's called The Matrix. It's
yeah.
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 And it's almost the way that it was just done, and the Genesis version, or kind of reminds me of Tron in a way, where you're like in this like all digital world, and you're running and you're doing stuff.
It also reminds you of that Sega Lost Rare game that's slowly coming back up, but it's now like for VR. Rez, R-E-Z.
Yeah, a little bit. But man, I remember playing that game. I remember being so confused. It is a pretty massive game as far as like being ahead of its time in a way, because it was like an RPG for the Sega Genesis. And I'm thinking like, man, what now? In terms of now, what company or what developer could do something with this? Because this is a whole big world. This is like, it has its own background. It has its own, it's at tabletop. You have a lot of things to draw from as far as doing stuff in this world. And I got somebody in mind.
Okay. Who'd you got?
Obsidian.
Oh, all right.
Obsidian.
Okay.
Now, I love me some Obsidian games. They've touched some first person. They just did Outer Worlds. It's a great game, Outer Worlds. If you guys haven't played Outer Worlds, get Game Pass, because you can get it for like $10 a month.
It's
a great
is awesome.
deal.
Yes, it's
Dude,
excellent.
Outer Worlds was awesome. I played the heck out of it. I never beat it because I got distracted. But
you have a life. That's how the world works, baby. Everybody got lives.
It is. But Fallout New Vegas was done by Obsidian. So I'm thinking of that kind of style, because when I remember going through like kind of the menus and stuff, it reminded me of the like Bethesda style of game, like for Elder Scrolls. But I'm like, I am not going to let Bethesda touch this game, because Bethesda maybe 10 years ago would have done a pretty good job, but right now Bethesda ain't doing anything right. They're just, everything they touch is just falling apart. It's like a glass house over there. So I'm like, Obsidian. We get two things really cool with Obsidian. Obsidian, they make good games, man, across the board. I can't think of anybody that has anything bad to say about Obsidian. The other thing is that now they're owned by Microsoft. So this would be a little cool exclusive game for the Microsoft, like either you're on PC, sure, but for the Xbox brand, you get a Shadowrun game, a brand new one, where it's like, man, this is ours.
Yeah. No, that'd be a really good hit for them, because, Shadowrun has always been, it's been definitely a cult following. Like, you have to really search for people to have. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but I think, didn't they make a Shadowrun Return like in 2013, I believe, I want to say? I think it's called, I think there was one called Shadowrun Returns. You might have to look into that. But either way, Microsoft, I think, should take a chance on that idea and let Obsidian do something like that if they decide to do that. Especially if you notice from all the Shadowrun games, every game that's been on different consoles had their own imagination of what they want to do with it. So Obsidian can really do their own imagination of their own Shadowrun. And that would be awesome to see what they would do with that.
And you are right. Shadowrun Returns did come out in 2013 for Windows, iOS, and Android. And that's a completely different departure from what was done before. Right. Because the genre is tactical role-playing.
Yes.
So completely different. Here I am. I'm thinking a big open world exploration, like Obsidian style or a Bethesda style, roaming around because you get to talk to orcs and all this kind of cool stuff. It'd be crazy to see all this stuff come to full realization. And you'll hear these guys over here, because the Shadowrun Returns, that was kickstarted.
That's right. Yes, it was. Yeah, with a bunch of
Yeah.
expansions followed by, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I really like about it, though, based on what I have seen, because I watched, I never actually hands-on played this game. So based on my research, I looked at the Super Nintendo and the Sega, and you're right, they're like day and night. They just happen to be in the same theme, right? And then, of course, it felt like the Sega CD one felt like, well, what happened if this world was a little bit more, Japanese style? And that's where you saw more of the characters more Japanese. And then, of course, you saw Xbox do the first-person shooter game, which I think a lot of people were not a big fan of that because it was just out of the norm, and it's just not. It doesn't make sense for that game to have it. It almost felt like it was game first, Shadowrun second. I guess a lot of people said.
And then around that same time, you also had like a lot better online multiplayer shooters as well, to play than that. Like it came out and it's like, okay, what's this? Okay, what's Shadowrun? I don't know. It's some new shooter. It's like, well, then here's Halo 3 or whatever. So people definitely didn't latch on to Shadowrun.
Okay. Now, Asibian, what can they use, say, from your favorite or the one you played, the Sega Genesis one, that they can enhance or make it more appealing to people that want to play it?
Oh, dude, the world and characters again.
Okay.
I'm just thinking with their ability to sit there and look what they did with Outer Worlds, where they have this really cool, unique cast of characters. You can sit there, you talk to, get to know them. You're going through imagine what they could do. So you have the city, world roaming around stuff, and then they could do something completely different feeling for when you go into that Matrix. Make it really have it more variety to where it's not just something that they've already done before, but something that they can, with the whole Matrix idea, they could do something completely different. Maybe it's a different view, maybe it's a different mini game or whatever.
Okay, because definitely something I want to put in it, and I'll mention my game next, but I definitely think this game needs a reputation heavily on based on the things that you do in the game. The world looks at you differently. You know what I mean? Yeah, I really, because the Sibian's really good at doing that, especially in New Vegas, where whatever group you want to join, someone's going to hate you. Mm-hmm. And they're going to look for you if you're in their way, and they know you. And that's one of the things that makes it really cool is I made an effect to the world, and some people are going to hate me, some people are going to love me, some people are going to work with me, someone's going to go out of their way to hunt me down. And that's what makes it really cool, and it's unexpected. And I know Asibian's really good at doing that. And Shadowrun is a perfect world for that because you just don't know what's going to happen in that world with the technology, the hacking. How awesome would it be where, you go back to your home and you find out it just gets ransacked by people and you don't, and they were looking for you. They just came at the wrong time. That would be so amazing to see. I would love that.
Absolutely. Because you don't know, because you'd have multiple different kinds of groups and different factions, in that world, and that just adds on to what I was saying too, about having this be a big living, breathing world for you to go and explore, which is much more enhanced from what we got to see on the Genesis version, where you're this little dude running around trying to aim and shoot somebody or whatever, get into some fights, hacking into stuff, because you can do mini games with the hacking stuff too,
right? So this brings into my game, and one of the things that I definitely would like to see this game have is multiple choices to have allies on your team. So Asibian is really good at giving you a big group of people, and you choose who you want to accompany you, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're independent developers, and they're Larian Studios, and they're known for all the Divinity series, but especially the Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 that are really popular right now. And it's basically an overhead strategy kind of style game, but it's so beautiful in a way where you pick your class and you basically buy certain items to make yourself more powerful. And the cool part about it is that if you don't like it, you can always go to this mirror and basically respect yourself or redo your class. So in this game, it'd be cool if you got certain perks and maybe you want a total remodel or reboot of your body or something. If you're an android or whatever you want to be, you can go back and change your classes and stuff. And one thing too about Divinity I like is there's shops where you could buy upgrades or in this game, books. So hey, what kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be a fire person? Well, hey, I can go buy fire books. Do I want to be a shocking person or electricity? I can do that. I can have both. It just depends how much abilities that I have, and that could be great for this game. Maybe I want to be a sniper hacker. Why not? You should be able to pick. You should be able to pick what kind of character you want to be, and get the items that you need to make that happen. And I think that would be so cool for this game to have for Shadowrun, because it's so deep down the rabbit hole that you should have any option how to go with that situation. And if it doesn't work out for you, you can go back and maybe go reboot some stuff, change some stuff around to help you in that situation. Another thing, too, about Divinity is each time you level up, you change stuff from your perks to even your talent. For this game to be probably skills, where there are certain perks for what you do in the game, saying like you get stronger every time you kill somebody, or if there's a large group in front of you, you can hack them, maybe turn one person against the other side. There's so many variations, and Divinity does a really good job of bringing more of a deep battle system to the game, and I really love that so much. It's so much that Divinity 2 allows 4 people to play. If you can get 4 people to play that game in a Shadowrun, I think that would be freaking fantastic. And especially like you can do dialogue where you guys can agree. It could be a voting of, should we trust this person? Should we not trust this person? Should we go in here? Should we not? And they definitely, and for Sibian too, it needs to have it where when you're investigating something, more stories and more missions come along with it. Like, hey, I'm checking out this room, I'm checking this computer, and I didn't find anything, but hey, this story leads me to another one I can go do for extra points. So I think that would be awesome.
I do think it would be kind of cool too, because like you said, like the Divinity series, it's kind of the top down kind of view, which would be faithful to like the original Genesis version or whatever. But how cool would it be if you had that kind of view, and then when you went and hacked into the Matrix, you went into a first person view then? So like it changed the gameplay up, because now it's like now you're going through here, and now you're going through in first person, just like kind of you would be, or what you would think to like how you would experience doing that. You're experience it from the character's point of view.
And another thing too, Divinity does is they really let you do anything. Like if you want to kill somebody, you can kill somebody. If you want to go rob somebody, go rob somebody. You can go rob houses as long as you're not being seen. All this stuff. Shadowrun should let you be able to do that kind of stuff. Like, hey, I should go, if I can get away with it, I can sneak in someone's house, hack their stuff. If I get seen, then I have to deal with the situation. If I kill somebody in the street, then yeah, bring security after me. Like sometimes Divinity kind of forces you to like to kill to help gain information or to level up, because Divinity has it where there's no grinding. Whatever you do in that moment is the experience that you get, and it's basically permadeath for these people. I don't know if Shadowrun wants to do that, but it'd be cool that the stuff that you do in that game stays what it is. So if you kill that guy in that room and you go back later, that person's still dead in that room, or there might be tape around it that the cops did come by at one point. You know, see something like makes you want to go back and just, hey, let me go back for a minute and see what's going on here, knowing that, oh, snap, something's changed in this situation. And that keeps the world moving. Now, I haven't had a chance to play Outer World, but I'm pretty sure Outer World does that, where, like, you know, once you do one action, if you go back to that action, something happens.
Well, you know, like, just like you said about, like, the whole faction idea, you know, I remember playing, like, just, it brings up to mind immediately, you're trying to kind of make peace on, like, the first world that you're on, and, you know, the guy working for the company is like, hey, you need to get these people out of there. You know, they need to come back here. You know, like these guys left. So, but then you go to them and they're like, we're not going back there. And it's like, you actually feel for these people, because like you like the other guy, he's like just corporate greed. But these guys are trying to live. They don't want to live under that corporate rule. So then there's a way for you to try and like if you go do it one way, it's like you can't go back and just talk to those people again. They hate you. You know, so your actions have reactions. But, you know, there was a way where if you go and you get rid of the dude in charge or put somebody else in charge, the other group is now more open to coming back.
Okay.
Because now they're like, okay, it won't be the same. But, yeah, like Outer Worlds, what Outer Worlds did too is like, because you mentioned like having people go with you, you know, like the Fallout games, the Elder Scrolls games, like, okay, I got a companion, I can roll around with this dude, I can talk to him, and you know, he's my dude, I can just have him carry stuff. What Outer Worlds did is that they almost mixed the idea of a companion up with like the Mass Effect series, where you have 2 dudes with you or whatever, and you're rolling around, and they each have a power set, and they have a quick button thing for their little for their power. So you're fighting some dude, and the dude has his power ready to go, and it's like an instant kill thing. The dude comes over there and just whacks somebody in the head with something, and then of course it needs time to recharge. So that was something that Outer Worlds did that I think would work really well in this setting. If you're going to have a couple of companions rolling around with you, and you guys are in a fighting setting where you got backup, and you can kind of choose what kind of dude you like. Since this setting has like this like magic and all that kind of stuff, you can have a dude like a mage, just a straight up. He's like a ranged dude. He just throws like magic everywhere and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like the options are endless for what you can do with that kind of thing.
Yeah, and especially I'm really excited because choice space is definitely for Shadowrun needs to have where how do you want to become? Do you want to be a douchebag or do you want to be this hero? And that's very important for Shadowrun itself that I really love to see, especially if you need to persuade somebody, because persuasion is very important to me in games where sometimes if I could persuade someone to do something for me without getting my hands dirty, I want to be able to do that. And so especially in a cyberpunk kind of world, like I need this person to hack something for me. He's the only best one. I want to try to persuade him for it, So yeah,
well, it gives you replayability too, because if you want to be like a good guy on one playthrough or like a bad guy the next. I remember the first time playing Knights of the Old Republic, and it's like I can be a jerk, and
right.
I can just like force persuade some dude to jump off a cliff. I'm like, that is nuts.
Yes,
but obviously you are ridiculously evil if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like Kotar had just had I'm a really good guy or I'm a completely evil guy, and there was no middle ground. There was no neutral. But no, like what you said, it gives you replayability because it allows you to play it. Like I'm always like, I'm actually a good guy, and I try to be a good guy in my life, and it just seems like when I'm playing games, I have a hard time detaching that. I'm like, I can't. No, he's a good dude. I can't do that. So. But it would be, like having another playthrough where like, okay, now I'm an evil bastard, and I'm gonna go through here, and I'm just gonna make everybody do my bidding for me, and everyone's gonna hate me, and this is how we're gonna roll.
It's funny too because I play a good guy too most of the time, but when I want to be bad, it's really going after the people that treat me like crap. Like I have a list, like you're on the list. I'll remember you when I come through again. That I'm going to make your world a living hell. Remember that. And so, but Branden, is there anything else you want to add to Shadowrun before we wrap this episode up?
Man, not really, dude. I think we both hit it. I really like your pick. I think that does a really good job. They do really. I think that would do really good of keeping it true to a kind of its original form in a way, with doing something all new and bringing it into the now, where mine is more like I want to go and explore this world completely from a first-person world, and I just want to immerse myself in it because I mean, let's face it, the real world sometimes is not the place I want to be.
Right, right, and especially they're the Larian Studios are known to be doing the next Boulder Gate 3. Oh. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So good for them. So hopefully, like if they do well enough, maybe we'll just see a new sci-fi from them. And I think they're doing another Divinity game. They're using the XCOM style kind of game. And I was actually looking into the people that did XCOM. I was like, they could probably do a good Shadowrun too. But I didn't want it in that play style because they're more of like the Resistance being something evil. And so I think they're better at that, and that's why I think Larian Studios fits a little bit better because they can give you more characters. I think you should be able to like pick up a select character for story, or you just make up your own character and make up your own choices. But I just think I always been more of a sci-fi than fantasy, just because the fact in these games, it's just cool of how you use technology to get answers, like implants, all this stuff. Like, do you want to be like this giant robot humanoid, or do you want to be a human with badass weapons? I always just love just the more sci-fi than fantasy kind of thing. And so,
I really like the idea of having a complete character creation and almost like a blank slate, due to the fact that this is a tabletop game. And that's exactly kind of what you would do in that setting, where you create your character and you create what your class is, what your species or whatever sub thing is, or whether you got human with implants or whether or not you're an orc or like a straight up mage dude. I think that'd be really neat because then you have an overall story arc that you go on, but your character is your character, And I think that works. That kind of thing would work really good with this setting. Whereas, like, maybe if you had like a select, like you can be only a couple and you can modify them. I want complete customization for this game.
Okay, awesome. Well, with that, thank you once again for listening to our show. Remember, you can always leave your thoughts, your concerns, and everything else with us as part of the In-Game Bots program. Now, remember, these are two different shows that are coming together. So for mine, you can always go on Twitter and you can always go on Facebook to find the In-Game Bots program by typing the whole thing in. Or on Twitter, you can type in @program in, where we have all our other shows that are on our network that you could definitely check out. There's always a link to all of them. And as for Branden over here,
you can check out the Game Addicts podcast. You can check us out on GameAddictsPodcast.com. And we're on pretty much every single podcast service that you can think of. We had a little bit of issue on Apple Podcasts where we got delisted for a minute.
oh no.
Yeah, they took it down. But if you were already subscribed, you got the new episodes. But if you searched it, it wasn't there. We got to figure it out, and we're back. And I think it's the exact same feed. So if you're already subscribed, nothing should be wrong. But if that is your place of choice, go check us out there. Of course, we're at Spotify, all that kind of stuff as well. And we're on social media at Game Addicts Play, pretty much across the board. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And, of course, we have a YouTube channel. Just search Game Addicts Podcast. That's like your one-stop shop for everything we do. We do gameplay videos. We put up our podcast there. Anything extra that we've done. I think we did one episode of like Game Addicts Eat where we tried like the Beyond Burger from TGI Fridays. Because we were like, what is this? We have to try this. And we were like, okay, this could be a new series, but, we're at least doing this one because we have to tape our reactions to eating a meatless burger from a big chain. So, like, we did, we do all kinds of cool stuff. So, yeah, check us out on all those places.
And remember, as you're reading this episode, there in the description, you will find links to everything we just mentioned. So that way it's a shortcut to you. And follow and subscribe and help us out. The more we get comments, ratings, reviews, the more we're up towards the front for people to notice us. Because, we're just trying to build, the reputation, our name, our brand, and just the passion of us enjoying what we love, and that is video games. But just like our two picks from Snatcher and Shadowrun, leave your thoughts, concerns. Who do you think is the right developers for this that can possibly make it? We will love to hear your thoughts, and we will love to talk about that later in our series, and put our thoughts in, if that could work or not. But if you want to find me personally, you can always find me as RetroAmp07 on Twitter. And Branden, do you have a private one, or are you just Game Addicts?
I'm just Game Addicts Play.
Okay.
I don't have a personal one on Twitter. No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, and we will catch you on our next program, our next episode.